Here's another big one, dude. How do you make it so that the resources are like clumped? All that's on purpose. See how think about it. You could have like the trees, like think about all the different ways the trees could be spread out. It could just be like randomly throughout the whole level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or notice how they're like clumped up in these clusters, right?
Yeah.
So I had to like tweak the algorithm to like make them cluster like that.
Huh.
Think about that.
There's...
Rather than be like sparse and spread out everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
Figured it was better for gameplay to like keep them like clustered. So I had to like tweak the procedural generation like numbers to like get them to clump like that. So I'm using like what's called like simplex generation.
Okay.
So that creates like clouds basically, if that makes any sense.
Like clouds as far as like internet clouds, or clouds as in like
No,
fluffy
you know, like
clouds?
the black and white clouds you see like in Photoshop.
Yeah.
It creates like clouds, and then those clouds, like the value of those clouds determines like where to place stuff. So like where the trees are like the white parts of like a black and white, or like a gradient cloud, if that makes sense. And then I like tweak like the threshold. Does that make sense? So that, and I'm like, okay, only place trees like where, like once I threshold it, like where it's like this color white, essentially on the cloud.
Oh, okay. So
So I'm generating
essentially,
like gradient clouds, right? And then analyzing each pixel, right? That's how I'm creating all of this stuff. And then I'm like layering. I'm actually doing it like multiple times. That's how I create the lakes, the trees, the rocks, the snow, like everything, even the flowers and like the plants. All of that is from like these simplex. It's called simplex noise,
okay.
from like noise clouds, which is basically what Minecraft uses, you know, as well. So
Huh. So like
yeah,
essentially the entire map is just a bunch of clouds?
dude, the entire map is a bunch of clouds.
That's amazing.
It's a bunch of clouds like thresholded and then like with stuff placed and like tweaked.
Yeah.
Think about that. And it's crazy. And then like how do you do it? How do you make that generate where it doesn't like freeze the entire computer up? How do you make it so it doesn't take like 20 minutes to generate that?
Yeah.
And then how do you make stuff like walk around like the lakes and the trees? And then how do you make it when you destroy trees that like you can walk over that area now? How do you do that? How does it know that like, oh, now you can just all of a sudden walk, this area is now walkable, you know?
Yeah.
Dude, it goes on and on. Like how do you generate like snow, desert, or like plains, you know, or grass, like terrains?
Yeah.
Think about that. How do you think about the AI? Like the AI, like it has like all these elements to it. It has perception, so it has vision, hearing, everything, right? Like touch, it knows when it gets hit by something, for example. It can see stuff. It can pathfind. It also has like, it can do like intelligent, it's called EQS, environmental query system stuff. Like it can EQS, like a lot of this is built on EQS. Like it uses EQ. Actually, the buildings have AI when they place their like units. Like how does it know where to place the units so that they're not, you know, interfering with, like they don't get spawned like into trees and get stuck, or spawned in other buildings and get stuck. So all that's handled by like the environmental query system for like, that's all AI basically.
Huh.
It just goes on and on. Like I've this is like everything I've talked about so far is like the tip of the iceberg in terms of technology for this.
That's insane, because you
Oh
think
my god, behavior trees, each unit has its own brain basically, right? And its own neurons and how it works and how it makes decisions.
that's
Sorry, go
insane.
ahead.
No, you're fine. I wish you could see my face right now because I am just like, mind is completely blown. Because whenever I think of like an indie game, I'm not a game developer. I have no idea what goes into developing a game. So I'm like, okay, well, you look at all of these like other games, like if you look at Call of Duty, for example, okay, this is like a really cool, like graphically detailed, beautiful game where you fight other people and you try to win, and then you look at an indie game and it's a completely different game. but the aspect of like, you look at this game and without knowing anything about the code or anything about what goes into the game developing, you're like, okay, this compared to Call of Duty, it can't be that complicated. But whenever you start to kind of describe everything in such depth,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
know.
like,
I'm like,
wow.
you're like, how's it complicated? I'm like, dude, where do you want me to start?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's like
I'm like, I don't even know where to start, dude.
how
Like,
much time do you have?
yeah. Like, I can just I could literally go on like this for hours, dude. Like, how do you do the pop-ups above their heads? How do you do like the hit points, like bouncing? When they like attack the frogs and stuff, right? Like, I don't know if you noticed that how it like bounces and stuff. Like, how do
Uh,
you make the units like avoid each other? It's just crazy, dude. Like, how do you make the projectiles and like all of that? And like the bombs, like even the bomb system, like from like the defense towers, is like pretty complicated. Like how those work and like the trajectory that they take and like how they do like AoE damage. How when they hit the ground, they like start to flash and like have a timer before they explode. They have like a little wick that like goes in and then they actually explode.
yeah, there's so much detail in like the individual bombs for a tower too, which is really cool.
It's funny because like the reason I used bombs for the towers was because I found this one guy in my art pack that had like a bomb on him. I'm like, oh shit, I'll like use that as like the tower weapon.
There we go. And it's so cool too. I mean, like the towers are so I want to say that they're really well balanced. I mean, you've got
Yeah,
these individual towers that can hit so many people and do so much damage, but two hits and they're gone.
which is the whole point. So they're like very effective,
Hmm.
but that's the balancing, right? Like, but they're weak, right?
Yeah.
The Minotaurs are like strong and powerful, but they're slow.
Yeah. They're so powerful. They're like the towers because they can hit so many different things at the one time.
Yeah, they have an AoE slam.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then you get into like, then there's all that, but then there's like the game design aspect of the game too, right? Like, you can put all that technology in, but if you don't have like good game design, then the game's gonna suck. Like you said, like the balancing, right? Or just the orthogonal unit differentiation, right?
Yeah.
Like all that stuff like needs to be factored in. This game doesn't really have it, but there's a concept called flow as well,
Okay.
where like as you play a game, you get better at it, right? Like just
Yeah.
naturally, you start to, and I don't mean just better like day to day. I mean like minute to minute, you get better at a game, right? Like you start to get used to the controls, you start to get like kind of like warmed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what does the game have to do? The game has to also become more difficult, right? Or else you're going to get bored, right?
Yeah.
But that's one end of like flow. That's if you go down the bottom end, right? Like where you start to get good, but the game doesn't get better with you or harder with you.
Mm.
And then the other way is like where the game gets too hard and it becomes frustrating and annoying.
Yeah.
So the idea with like any game, one of the ideas, it's just this one game design concept is you want to have what's called flow, where the game like exactly as you get better at it, like it gets harder.
Yeah.
Not too much and not too little.
Okay.
Yeah. This game actually has no flow, really, because it's a multiplayer game. But
Yeah, but it's really cool too because even though it doesn't necessarily have any flow, like it still has a sense of challenge because every time you fight somebody new, they're gonna have different strategies, different tactics. You're gonna have to deal with different things.
yeah, exactly. Let's see how this fight goes up here. I'm getting my ass kicked. This is where F comes in handy.
So
Just
remind me again, what does F do?
F is tactical mode. So like that's just an innovative solution to a problem. Like where people were like, dude, these large battles, I can't see what the hell's going on, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, started to analyze it with Michael.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, the problem is that there's too many. I like removed all the icons just to see what would happen. And it got like so much more clear. But then the problem is when you remove all the icons, you can't see the team. So I had to like write a shader that like you could still see the team. When you hit F, it hides all the icons, but you can still see like what team the characters are on. So it gives you a quick read as to like what's going on in that large battle. You know what I mean? Like, are you winning? Are you neutral? Are you losing? Right? You can
Yeah.
kind of just look and be like, how much red or blue do I see? Right? And if I see like if I'm blue and I don't see a lot of blue, it means I'm like losing, right? Because like all my guys are getting killed. If that
Yeah.
makes sense. Does that make sense? So that's I call it tactical mode.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. As far as like tactical mode, that hits it right on the mark. Because instead of being in, I guess you can say strategic mode where you can see each individual unit, what exactly they
Right.
do, try to plan it all
Yeah.
out, you can just see,
Right.
okay, well, this is where the enemy is. I can attack this thing. It's
It's really
perfect.
just like because you in this game I found that like it's better just to let your guys attack
Hmm.
in general. Like not you shouldn't command them too much once they see enemies. Just like let them fight it out because they're actually pretty smart. You can kind of trip them up if you're constantly trying to command them
Hmm.
in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Which I've
Uh,
definitely noticed whenever, like, especially like even during that fight, whenever I continuously tried to command my troops, they just wouldn't kill the guys as fast as I wanted them to. So I finally
exactly.
let them go, and they sat
Let
down and
them
they're like,
go.
okay, yeah,
They're smart. They pick the closest guy and they go to him and then they kill them, or they pick the guy like who's attacking them. You know, whoever's like the greatest threat essentially, or whoever's like the easiest target for them. They're going to automatically attack. So you
yeah,
just kind of let it go. And so that's why tactical mode, you're really just trying to see like, hey, how the hell am I doing? Should I like pull my guys back maybe, or am I going to lose this battle? Should I send in reinforcements? You know what I mean? Kind of
yeah,
that kind of tactical aspect rather than like yeah strategic like where should I move my units and which units do I have and that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It's kind of BS really. It's not really. I just call it tactical mode because you kind of use it in like a tactical situation, but it's
yeah.
just a word for it. I don't know if it's like really tactical.
I think that it's considered. I think it's a great name for it, because it really hits it right on the mark. That
Thanks. Yeah,
it is tactical. I do really enjoy that. It makes it simple. Doesn't make
I
it
had
too
to give it a
confusing.
name of some kind, so
Yeah,
figured that worked.
yeah. Tactical mode works out beautifully. I love it.
So yeah, then we added these like graphs. That was an interesting process. Like, how the hell do you add these things? And like
Yeah.
you collect all this data over time, right?
So what gave you the idea to add these graphs at the end to show your statistics?
Honestly, because yeah, Michael wanted them. He was telling me how like StarCraft, because like, well, actually, what happened was like we were playing the games, and Michael wanted like a way to balance the game, and so we actually took all this. We like I like logged it out to a log file, and he would take it and like dump it into like a spreadsheet, and then he
Okay.
would like make graphs from it like manually, right, from all the data that I would collect, right.
Yeah.
And so I would just like log all the data to a log file, and then he would like manually. And then at one point I was just like, you know what, dude, I can like just I can get like a graphing plugin, off the marketplace. And so I
Yeah.
got this graphing plugin called like Kantan Graphs, and it integrates with like the UI system in Unreal. And I just like plotted, I spent a day like just figuring out how to plot the data onto these graphs. Just it was originally for like balancing,
Mhm.
but then we found it was cool just to like to be able to like analyze the game at the end to see kind of like what happened, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that definitely because then you can kind of see like in this case, like wood, rock, and everything else. It's like okay, like where am I excelling? Where like I kept jumping up and down. Can I make it more steady, or do I need to make it more steady, or you know,
Yeah.
like with the warriors, I'm gradually going up.
Right.
Um, what is there something like that I need to do differently to be able to make it more steady, or what can I do like based around the resources that I see here? What could I've done differently to be able to produce even more warriors over time?
Exactly. Yeah, you can kind of look at them anyway. And that was the idea behind them was it was originally for balancing and yeah, and then it's just to kind of give you a view because we don't have like a replay. This is almost like a replay mode, but it's like a replay of the data, right?
Yeah,
So it
you
just
can
gives you an idea of like what happened.
yeah, you can see what happened during the game without actually watching the entire game again,
Exactly.
which is really cool. I do really like that as well.
So yeah, so I built Atria Star, then I built Axial Drift. I basically like recreated the physics from like tribes, the original Star Siege tribes. And that
Okay.
was like that was like this like holy grail basically for people. Like engineers have been trying to like recreate the tribes physics for like 25 years. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take on that challenge. That was the game right before this game.
Okay.
So I actually successfully did that
Oh
and like
wow.
recreated the tribes physics and like launched an entire game. called Axial Drift, and it, like everything I've ever built, like nothing's ever like, become like this big hit or anything like that. Even though I've wanted everything to kind of,
Yeah.
but yeah. So that didn't ended up not doing very well ultimately. Even though I thought it was going to, because like everybody was like, hey man, like all you got to do is what people have always wanted. They were like, just all we want is like Star Siege, like the original Tribes and the Tribes physics, like with skiing, where you like hit these hills and ski off these hills. They were like, all we want is that with better graphics. So I built that with better graphics, and I even added like modding.
Uh-huh.
You know, yeah, it didn't really take off, unfortunately.
Huh.
So yeah, I built that in terms of it, as a game. And yeah, and then I built this.
Okay.
Yeah. And this was kind of inspired. It's funny. I always go back and forth between games. Like I'll build like a really high tech 3D first person shooter of some kind, like with like a bunch of 3D, and then I'll like want to build like a simple pixel art game.
Yeah. Well, I love both aspects, right? You know, being able to jump between one and the other, because there's so many inspirations, especially nowadays. There's so many different games that are coming out that really kind of inspire creativity in different forms, whether that be with game creation or art or writing or whatever it might be. So, I mean, it definitely makes sense that you would want to continue to jump back and forth, because it's also like, all right, what are you doing right now? What kind of games are you playing? Okay, I'm playing Call of Duty. Well, I want to make a first-person shooter. That's awesome. Or the new Age of Empires just came out. Okay, that's really cool. I love this game. I want to make something kind of like that, but in my own style.
Exactly. Yeah. I find that like pixel art games, what I like about them is that they're somewhat timeless, and you're not competing on like the graphics / reality treadmill kind of
Yeah,
thing, where you're like this has, and so you get to focus more on the gameplay, which is cool.
yeah. Which I
I think
mean,
that's important.
there was a video or a study that I recently saw, I'm sorry, which stated basically that a lot of the times, or with the video game industry now, you've got so many games in the past, like with Halo. Whenever it first came out, it wasn't like, it was cool graphics and everything, but it wasn't like trying to create this extremely complex type of deal. There was a lot of different hidden things in it, and you could go in and make your own story out of it. Whereas now it's just like, okay, they're just really trying to make it look as pretty as possible instead of really giving you a good story or giving
Yeah.
you that good gameplay. So that's always really cool to see with games like this, is like you're getting good gameplay. You're not getting somebody that's trying to focus on making the prettiest thing in the world. Because if I wanted to go out and see the prettiest thing in the world, I'd go outside and touch some grass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're gonna get more realistic than that.
Yeah. I'm just
Exactly.
like,
That's so true.
so it's like with this game, I love it because there's so many different things that can happen throughout the game, and it's constantly improving. I mean, you're genuinely passionate about it. It's always changing, and it's a really cool game overall. And it doesn't focus on just trying to give you the prettiest thing in the world. It
Sometimes when I look at this, all I see are like the faults, like the bugs. It's crazy, you know.
One, it's
But I think that's normal as like a creator, you know.
Yeah, it's the easiest thing in the world to criticize yourself.
Yeah.
Because whenever you're creating something, it's kind of like one of our previous conversations where it's like you're trying to make it that next big hit. You're trying to make it as like good as you possibly can. And so, as from a creative standpoint, you're looking at this fantastic game, and it could be the most perfect game in the world in some people's eyes, but then all of a sudden, um, you know, you look at it and you're like, okay, well, this leaf on this tree could be slightly different, or something like that.
Well, yeah, like on
Yeah.
this level, if you look at the trees, I like messed up the animation for like their when they move when you hit them. So you'll see some of them like flash because I
Okay.
like messed up I don't know, you probably have never noticed it, but I've messed up like the mirroring kind of stuff. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah,
I
I've
noticed
never.
it like time and it like pisses me off. I'm like, fuck, I have to like redo that.
I love it. I love the animation. I love the sway of the trees whenever you hit them, though.
Yeah.
Like in the palm trees too, it looks amazing. It's almost I can't remember which Mario game it was, but that Western Mario game where it had the kind of like palm tree feel to it. That's what it kind of reminds me of.
Trying to like I'm not 100% sure which one that might have been,
I
but
think it was for the
so many Mario games.
N64.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Like it was a 3D one.
Yeah, it was a 3D Western type.
Western Mario? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have the N64, so I guess I missed it.
Yeah, I know you were saying that you rented the
Yeah.
N64 from.
Well, I would like just play it at Blockbuster, like
Really?
demo machine. Yeah, I would like literally go there and like stay there for an hour and just play Pilot Wings
Oh,
on,
that's
the- on
awesome.
their N64, dude.
I miss Blockbuster.
Oh, I know, right?
Blockbuster was
They like
awesome.
literally shut down. Like Netflix killed them.
Yeah,
and
seriously.
and like Netflix tried to sell themselves to Blockbuster at one point or something like that. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that at all.
I think that's the case. I could be lying, but I think that's the story. And Blockbuster like laughed them out of the office. They're like, "Are you kidding me?" They're like, "We're not going to buy you." And then they like tried to compete with them, and then Netflix like decimated them. And obviously, because like originally Netflix was like you would order it by mail. That was
Yeah.
so amazing, dude. I don't know if you remember those days, but like ordering Netflix by mail, and then
And
you would
then-
like get the DVD, and then you would send it back to them, and they would send you like whatever you wanted next once they got their other DVDs back.
Yeah, I know
You remember those
Blockbuster did that
days?
at one
You know
point.
what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know Blockbuster tried to do the kind of the same thing too for
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
that's
second.
exactly right. That's what happened. Like Blockbuster was like, "We're not going to buy you. We'll just steal your idea."
Yeah, and then completely blew it.
Well, yeah, because then eventually Netflix was smarter, and they actually went in like while Blockbuster was doing that, Netflix was like, "That's cool. We're just going to go do like video streaming now."
Yeah,
And then Blockbuster just got like completely left behind.
yeah,
That's what happened. Like they weren't doing anything innovative in the first place. So
yeah.
growth driven. They were just like, "Oh, we're just going to steal your idea. We're bigger than you."
We're bigger than. I'm just thinking of the Austin Powers movie. I'm bigger than you. I'm high on the food chain.
Yeah.